there. It's time for another Code With Me session. So we're going to talk today about lists and using lists to create navigation menus. Very simple navigation menus. Okay, so let's take a look at what I have here. I have a simple list with 4 items on it: home, products, about, and contact. Now, if you're making some basic navigation and you want to have a menu on the left hand side, you can definitely use a UL with some list items to create that. One of the first styles that you would want to use is, let me put some style in here. One of the things that you can do to help your UL not look so much like a list and more like a navigation is by setting the list style type. So let's go ahead and create a rule for our UL, and we're going to change the list to list style type none. List style type none will remove those bullet lists in front of your list items. Also, if you wanted to have a list with a different style bullet instead of the disk, which is the standard default, there are many different options here. If you take a look at what we have here, there's a circle, which is kind of just like a circle instead of a filled in circle. There's square. This is one of my favorites. I like to use the square. And let's see what else we have here. We have different styles of letters and numbers that you can use if you're using an ordered list. That's where all these other ones are coming from. So let's just go ahead and stick with none and take a look at what we have here. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my font size so it's a little bit more readable for us. So I'm going to change that on my LI. I'm going to put it to 1.5M, which is 1.5 times the normal default size of the paragraph. And I'm going to change my font family to Arial, and that's all I'm going to do right now. Okay, so here is what I would call a vertical navigation menu. One thing that all navigation menu needs to have is a hyperlink. So I'm just going to put some blanks in here for now, so at least it will look like a link. There we go. And I like to make use of copy and paste. Control C and Control V will paste that the snippet here. Control C, Control V. Try and keep my typing to a minimum. Okay, so here we have our hyperlinks. Again, they don't go anywhere right now, so if I click on them, nothing's going to happen, but at least I can see what they look like. Okay, so to make a horizontal navigation menu, basically I want all of these home, products, about, and contact to be across in the same row. So one of the properties in CSS that will make that happen is changing the display setting. So by default, our LIs are considered block level items, which means that as soon as the LI closes right here, it will form a new line on the next item. So you can see when I highlight this, you can see that the LI is actually quite long, goes across the whole page here, and here is our UL, which is the big box that everything's sitting in. This shows you a nice little indentation here, and then this inside is where your list style type would go. So that's what we're working with. What we want to do is we want to break this up so that instead of them sitting on top of each other, they're going to sit next to each other. And we're going to do that using display on the LI. So we're going to change the display, instead of block, which is default, we're going to change it to inline. As soon as we do that, you will see that these items will now be sitting next to each other. Okay, so that's great and everything, but now we need to apply our CSS box model to give this some space here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this whole UL inside of a navigation as an HTML5 semantic div, just to keep it nice and clean. Tab that over. Okay, so now I have everything sitting inside my nav. And I'm going to do a couple little pieces of work here. So I'm going to take my nav and I'm going to change my margin to 0. And then let's take a look at my UL. So this is where I really want to do a lot of this work. Let's put some padding in here first. So padding of 20 pixels will give us a little bit of space on the top and bottom. And I'm going to put a margin of 0 in here as well. And I'm going to put a background color, a black background color of black in here. Oh, it looks, I can see my nice little bar, but I need to change my font a bit. So because my fonts are coming in as my hyperlinks, I'm going to need to create a new style, and this one is going to be LIA. So what this is doing is it's saying target, this rule will apply to all of the A tags that are sitting inside of an LI. So I'm going to do a few things. So first I'm going to get rid of the underline, and I do that using text decoration none. And then let me change the color a little bit light gray contrast. Okay, so far we're doing pretty good here, but I definitely want these to be spaced out. So I'm going to space them out here using some padding. And this is going to give us a little bit of padding and a little bit of breathing room here. And then I'm going to come up to my UL, do text align center, kind of push this into the center of the UL. So it's looking pretty good right now. What else do I have? You know, I want this to be completely flush against my screen. So I'm going to create one more rule for the body, and I'm going to make a margin of 0. And that will give me that flush box all the way up into the edges. So that gives me a nice little thing here. Okay, so everything is looking pretty good right now. Let's see, do I have anything else I want to do? Oh, I want to go ahead and put a hover. So, oops, I want to apply a hover to my hyperlink. So right now, when anyone hovers over my hyperlinks, nothing really happens. So even though it changes from a point, right, to a hand, so you know that these are clickable, I want to make it more obvious that they're clickable. And I'm going to use that by changing the color when we hover over. So I'm just going to change the background color, and I'm going to change it to purple. I'm feeling the purple today. So now when I hover over these items, I'm kind of interacting with it more, and I like that. And then maybe I want to change the font color to white, because this is light gray. It's very subtle difference here. Can't really see too much, but so this is my navigation menu. And even though I'm not really concerned about making this responsive right now because we're just learning how to work with CSS, this sort of works in a responsive way, but what I don't like is when you hover over it, you can see that it's blocking some things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my line height a bit on my LI, and this is basically saying the height of the line needs to be bigger. So I'm going to change it to 55 pixels, and that way when I hover over these, it's definitely a lot nicer. And you can even see if I go even to a smaller screen, this menu turns into a really nice little vertical menu as well. So I like that. I think it works well for me, and I've got my little hover, so I'm happy with that. So again, this is just a very simple way of doing a horizontal navigation menu. You can change around the box model items, make these things smaller or wider as you see fit. This is just one example, and if you have the This works pretty well with a large screen, with a medium-sized screen, and with a small screen. Okay, so um, working with navigation menus, I mean, there's so many different examples out there on the web. Some of them are very complex, and with mobile first design, we really want to go with some simple, easy navigation menus that will work in a variety of screen sizes without having to do the drop down menus and hovers and things like that. I don't know if you've tried to work with those on mobile phones, but they get really I can hardly ever get my finger to land on the right one, and then I'm constantly making it big, trying to zoom in and zoom out, and it gets ugly. So anyway, this is an example of how to make my interpretation of a simple horizontal navigation menu using the unordered list and list items. Thanks. Bye.